year with international and national speakers and political leaders. Hosted by Family First New Zealand, the forum brings together a national network of family-focused organisations, scholars, lobby groups, church leaders and community groups who are part of a growing movement to bring New Zealand to a point where families are strengthened, marriage is honoured, life is protected and religious freedom is defended. This year's conference will again be held at the Dewdrop Event Centre in Manukau City, not too far from the Auckland Airport, on Thursday 28th of August and Friday 29th of August. Yes, because of demand, we're starting the conference earlier with 3 important sessions and a time of networking on the Thursday evening, and then a full-day program all day Friday. This year's theme is Courage at a Cultural Tipping Point. The culture is slowly but surely waking up to the harmful effects of the radical left-wing agenda and the destruction of family values that we all hold dear. Some countries have even figured out how to define a woman. And at this year's conference, once again, we have an amazing lineup of brave speakers from the US, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Dr. Miriam Grossman last spoke at our forum in 2012. You may also recognise her from the recent Daily Wire documentary, What is a Woman? But more recently, she's released an important book on the transgender agenda. I'll be doing a live interview with Dr. Grossman from New York, where she is based. Jeff Johnson is an issues analyst for Focus on the Family in the United States. We're also very excited to have Dawn Hawkins discussing the issue of pornography and sexual exploitation. From Canada, we have Amanda Achtman bringing us a warning about the slippery slope of euthanasia. From Australia, we have Kirralie Smith, a wife, a mother, and an activist for biology and truth, but who is paying the price for speaking up. And for the first time in New Zealand, you will get to hear their side of the story. Israel and Maria Folau will get to hear from them personally and not via the hostile mainstream media. And finally, we're hosting and recording a special episode of Straight Talk before a live audience at the conference. It'll be a lively discussion and you can be part of that live audience. I want to invite you to this year's Forum on the Family. It starts Thursday night, 28th, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and then all day Friday, 29th from 8:45 a.m. through to 4:30 p.m. It's the highlight of the year and you don't want to miss it. Arrange to be there. Book your flights today. Gather your friends. If you're concerned for our culture, our country and our families, you may be saying, what can I do? Well, step 1, attend the Forum on the Family. Have your spine stiffened by some fabulous speakers who will encourage, equip and inspire you. Now, the last couple of years have been sellouts, so don't delay. Go to our website, forumonthefamily.nz, for all the information you need. Register today. Don't miss this important family conference. Go to forumonthefamily.nz. Register today.
Good morning, everyone, both here in New Zealand and around the world. Welcome to Solid Ground, where we talk the issue of the day, particularly here in New Zealand, from, a solid ground of good philosophy, good ethics, good faith and good values. So wonderful to have you along. As always, particularly to our newer viewers, if you want to comment, because this is a live show, if you want to comment, know that if you're on the Family First Facebook page or Family First YouTube channel, your comments will come directly live to me here in studio. So comments on what we're discussing, questions as well. I definitely have viewers who either use the chat, some have emailed me. In fact, one of the topics I'm dealing with today came from an email. Someone said, "Hey Simon, could you talk about this?" Which I'm pleased to do so. So as I say, this is live, which means if there's a blooper, there's no button to beep it out. But seriously, you're welcome here. And as I say, you'll be watching this across an array of platforms, including on my own social media channels. But if your comment wants to reach me live this morning in the studio, use the Family First YouTube or Facebook channel, because things like this can happen. Because I always say good morning to the wonderful people. As the show grows, I might have to moderate this sometimes and not be able to say hello to everyone. Otherwise I'll spend the whole show saying g'day. But to Edmund, good morning. To Anna Marie there in Whanganui, lovely to have you on. Michael, welcome back. Adrian there from Switzerland, sounds like it's quite a change in the weather. Harrison, lovely to have you along as always. Gordon, good morning. And to Dee Dee, I think I saw you were on last night on Straight Talk, our panel talk. I might have that wrong, but I think I'm right for once. Jackie, lovely to have you along. I'm not surprised it's chilly down there in Ratihi. Good morning to Darren. Yes, it is chilly. Don't let me wearing a t-shirt fool anyone. The heater is on beside me here, keeping me nice and warm. Chris, lovely to have you along there in Napier. Nigel, good morning. And to everyone else who's joining the show, it's great to have you here. Look, there's no shortage of things to talk about today, so I thought I would just jump straight in when I find it. It's starting with the political... and Susan, good morning. I can't miss Susan. Good morning. Lovely to have you along. Look, I thought I'd just jump straight into this. This is a political matter. Oriini Kaipara. Some of you might know her, some might not. She's been a news reader and reporter with News Hub, and now I assume it's 3 News. But she's just put her hat in the ring to be the candidate for Te Pāti Māori, or the Māori Party, in the Tamaki Makaurau by-election. So as you know, the sitting MP, and I've had a name blank, Tasha Kemp. I didn't know her from my time. She came into Parliament this term, and I haven't followed every MP closely. But long and short, she sadly died recently, you might recall in the news. Kidney disease. Very, not nice and exceptionally sad. Linked to the Manarewa Marae, used to be the chief executive there and actually caught up in the issues around John Tamahiri and the trust's financial operations, the taking of public data, all accusations, the taking of data and then using that for election purposes. So sort of a controversial election last year. That doesn't take away from obviously the sadness of her death, but controversial because she won by 42, repeat 42 votes. Over the Labour Party, then MP Penny Hanare, who actually I did know, I used to work with him both in Parliament and out. But anyway, she sadly passed away, so now there has to be a by-election. And I see Dee Dee says she's not currently on TV3, so thank you for that, partly because I barely ever watch the TV. I don't know about you guys, I very rarely watch live television anymore, and almost even more rare will you find me watching TV1 or TV3. I've only done so in recent days because my mother has been down visiting Rachel and me here at home, along with my wider family, my siblings. It was a wonderful get-together, I have to say, particularly to bring my mum here. It's been the first proper gathering we've had since my father's death. So that was, nice to regale stories and so forth. But anyway, I've gone off on a tangent. So not currently on TV news. So first and foremost, Oriini is standing to be a candidate. She hasn't been chosen yet. And look, I suppose that the key point is it does raise some questions, particularly when someone is looking to join a very radical party. I think that's the key distinction I'd want to make here, because of course there's been other people within the media who have sought and won political office. You think of Willie Jackson currently in the Labour Party, obviously Pam Corkery famously many years ago. I think, was it the Alliance or the Greens? I actually can't remember. Maggie Barry, who I was in Parliament with, of course, the voice of Morning Report for many years. So it's not without precedent, and it's perfectly legal, it's perfectly fine. This is democracy. But there's just something slightly uncomfortable in my mind that we've had someone who is leading the news on a major news channel who is so clearly aligned with a very radical, if not the most radical, far-left Marxist and sort of ethno-state concepts which the Māori Party have. And by ethno-state, it's very much wanting to create a nation based around ethnicity, not the sense of democracy and citizenship. So Te Pāti Māori, and I have to put my cards on the table. As you know, I'm a former national MP. I have very little time for their policies and perspectives. They are, as I described, deeply radical, very much to the far left. I mean, Rawiri Waititi is at the moment supporting, says one of his great heroes is the president, I think, of the Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, who's just a horrendous character. But he's been celebrated because, again, this guy is embracing sort of ethnic politics. So, again, there's nothing illegal, there's nothing wrong with this lady putting her hat into the ring or her hand up. Better not mix my metaphors. But there is something a little bit uncomfortable when you think about her as a media personality, or having been. Was she genuinely objective? I think it's very hard to say that the answer is yes to that. I think the more radical you are in your politics, I think the harder it is to actually represent anything that's mainstream. And that's perhaps the key point that I'd want to drive home here today. While it's perfectly fine to put her hand up, it's perfectly legal, it's part of our democratic system, she is welcome to do so. The more radical someone like her is, linked to the likes of Te Pāti Māori, which is radical by definition, by expression, raises serious questions around how someone like this can actually operate within the mainstream media with a straight face and be able to tell the public that they're actually reporting accurately, objectively, and fairly. So we will see where it goes. As I say, this is like every selection process. Undoubtedly, there are a number of people who will be trying out for the role, and look, good luck to them. My prediction is Labour will win. It's always traditionally been a Labour seat. Labour's doing better in the polls at the moment. And as I say, there's a little bit of a stink around how Te Pāti Māori operated during the last election. It was all to do with COVID data and census data, which the marae was collecting. And the accusations are that they then use that personal data of those people to help with their electioneering. And then it gets even deeper with a lot of the monies, the whole lot of family relationships here into the Waipareta Trust. So there's a lot of smoke. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So there's that. John suggests she's even more likely radical. Yeah, I think there probably is. You've seen that with some of the younger ones. Is it Tamitha Paul, for example? The younger they are within the party, they're even more radical. This is Tamitha Paul recently is saying that we shouldn't be doing anything with shoplifters because they just need to get supplies. Tell that to the poor business owners. And there was something else. Obviously, in the past, she was all about clearing out the prisons and getting rid of the police. Yeah, DD sums it up quite well, their basic position, but I think it goes deeper than even just the treaty. I've joked before with Te Pāti Māori that they're always the supposedly anti-colonial party and yet embrace the very dangerous political philosophy of Marxism, which of course is imported from Europe. Edmund is asking, I have a question, can someone with depression run for government? Long and short, yes, they can. I'm not going to name any names. I've worked with colleagues who actually would have an array of psychological issues, and those too with physical issues. There's nothing to stop people running for that. In fact, the ability to run for Parliament in New Zealand is pretty simple. Pretty much being a New Zealand citizen and over 18, and also not having a criminal record, I think, of over 2 years. But it attracts an array of people, and actually those that I've met, as I say, with a range of physical or psychological conditions by and large, do really, really well. In fact, they bring a wonderful perspective into the Parliament, which is needed, and often quite a deep empathy. But we also know that we bring in quite a number of rogues into the system. Across all the parties, I'm not going to regale you all with the sad, sorry tales of when I was in Parliament, including MPs from my own party, one after another, leaving. We've obviously had some more recently. So in some ways, your Parliament, and I'll stop on this one, the Parliament does represent the width and breadth of New Zealand. Not always perfectly proportionately, but it's not a house of somehow great doyens and intellects. It's a real mix. It's a real mix. Jackie, I think, agrees with me that they should get it back. The Labour Party should win it back. Harrison's asking, did I hear that this is Tanya Unkovic, she was New Zealand First MP. So yes, I have. In fact, I've been in contact with her after the case. I want to stress that after. I had nothing to do with it. But immense respect for Tanya. It's clear she just wanted to change. And look, a huge decision, I would say, guys. You fight very hard to get into Parliament. It's a hard slog. And it's a hard slog to even stay there because it's not the most healthy of environments at all levels. But no, she fought hard to get there. She actually made a real impact right from the start. Very empathetic. I was really impressed, particularly with the way she travelled around the country dealing with various hospices and palliative care spaces. So her stepping away would have been a huge decision for her. But from the little contact I've had, it seems like a person who's at comfort with her position. Dee Dee's asking, did you work with any of that? I don't quite get that one, but that's probably my mind racing in a thousand directions. Hey, I thought I'd put this one up. It may have slipped under some people's radar. This is David Fisher, I would argue, at his ideological worst. You might remember we shared a story a few weeks ago about a young biological girl who was having gender issues, who described herself as a girl at one point, gender fluid, and was returning, according to her parents, to her biological identity. So the parents have called her Vanessa. That's not her real name, but she was the one who starved to death in a motel, despite having a myriad of social services here in New Zealand looking after her. And the long and the short is she died, if you had to put it in the most basic terms, is because the officials, the social workers, the care workers were so obsessed with her gender identity issues that they missed the anorexia. And because of the tension between her and her parents around both the anorexia and the confusions of the gender identity, which, a leading psychologist had told the family is linked to the anorexia, she was estranged from her parents. And it does seem, from what we can see, that the social workers and others, with their myopic view of gender identity, trying to affirm this young woman who thought she was a boy, that they kept that estrangement, they kept that distance with parents, and they ignored all the warnings. So that's the quick context. But what I think is absolutely tragic, and I think bordering on actually disgusting, was this article by David Fisher in the Herald over the weekend, which is talking about now a dead girl and a traumatised family. But if you read the article, it is behind a paywall, but if you read an article, it seems his almost singular purpose is to continue to push gender identity. He's at absolute pains throughout the article to call this biological girl a boy and to call that boy Alex. It's almost obsessive. Now, I'm no grammarian, and I'll defer to others of you who are better at that and want to read this atrocious piece of reporting. But really, it's got nothing to do with respecting the death of this biological girl. It's got nothing to do with respecting the grieving parents. It has very little to do with holding the various ministries and groups looking after her to account. Now, what it is just one paragraph after another where he just continues to insist that this biological girl is a boy. And the fervency of it, again, when you read what he's put down at length, as he's wont to do, you see that there's an agenda at play. Well, that's my take on it. It's very much an agenda, all and every circumstance. Because, of course, as you know, we can go to other articles, be it by Fisher or others in the Herald, who go out of their way to avoid the use of pronouns. Whereas here, it's like someone who's drunk, if you will, drunk on pronouns. He, this, Alex, that. It's quite obsessive. And again, I think it's quite insulting. It's insulting to the family. It's insulting to the girl's memory. Yep, she was struggling with her identity, and it ultimately led to her death. And I think also we need to just quickly highlight this, because at the bottom, the Herald confirms that it's the purveyor of mistruths and fake news. And it's wonderful in many ways, guys, to see it in black and white, that the Herald admits that it's all for fake news, because it says its code of ethics says that if a person changes their identity, they'll be referred by that identity. In other words, they work on belief, not reality, and then apply that, as the UN Special Rapporteur that I referenced last week was talking about, apply that to crimes here in New Zealand. The New Zealand Herald, amongst other mainstream media, will falsely report who's committed the crime. In other words, men, and we've got many instances of them here in New Zealand, men who believe they're women and go and rape, attack, abuse other people, often other women or biological women, will be reported as female-on-female violence. That is just wrong. It skews the stats. But here is the Herald confirming its bias, its capture to gender ideology, its belief that reality is trumped by belief, and that they're just going to go along with a pretend world. So I just don't know why people bother, to be honest, with the likes of the Herald. They are just, as I keep saying, they're purveyors of mistruths, and they celebrate it. And there can be little respect for that. And so just I think very, very disappointing. Jackie sums it up quite nicely, if I've read it right, wondering how many people actually subscribe to this paper if they can't get behind the paywall. That's a good point, and I would say who also would bother to read a paper that basically reports fake news, deliberately, wantonly so. Very, very disappointing, and as Susan said, it's very disgusting from Fisher. But look, that's the problem. He's running an ideology, as he often does. And when I read a lot of his reporting, I mean, again, it's a free world. He's welcome to do it. But I find a lot of his work, certainly in depth or maybe verbose, there's always lots of words, but he runs a very clear set of ideologies. Very, very disappointing, and as Susan also points out, very upsetting to the parents. But Fisher and David Farry and others don't care. Their ideology, it's a zealousness ultimately comes first, but absolutely tragic. I thought I'd just put this one up here. This is in Christchurch. I just thought this was sad. Again, another church like in Masterton that were attacked. But the observation that myself and Bob were discussing yesterday is no reporting of this as a hate crime. Now, let's be clear, I'm not a great fan of running around screaming hate crime. Just as I don't like running around crying hate speech. But I'm always struck how just about every other crime directed to something non-Christian is very quickly labelled a hate crime. So you may remember, I think it was in Tauranga, like a Rainbow Youth or a building that was dedicated to that sort of help and service was burned to the ground, and papers screaming hate speech, which at the end of the day had nothing to do with it. The judge said there was no actual in this case, LGBTIQ plus antipathy. It was someone who just had mental health problems, who just, unfortunately, for that community, found their building being targeted. But I mention it as just one example because it was instantly and widely reported as a hate crime. When people have defaced mosques or attacked temples, hate crime. However, we found here in New Brighton not one word. Doesn't matter if you went to the Herald or the Post or TV1. It was all very straight down the line factual. And at one level, I'd like to say that's great. It was just, there was an arson, the woman's been charged, so on and so forth. But the inability of the papers to call an attack on a Christian site of worship a hate crime in the same way they do for everyone else, except, of course, synagogues. Attacks on synagogues are very, very rarely noted as hate crimes. It just illustrates the massive hypocrisy that operates in our legacy media here. It's just so that cultural Marxism, there's the oppressed and the oppressor. And so if you're in the oppressed side, anything and everything that happens to you will be described as a hate crime. If you are deemed to be the oppressor, and I'm sad to say the Christian church fits into this. No matter what happens, if you're burning down this church in New Brighton, of course we had the attack on 7 churches in Masterton, it is not going to be described as a hate crime. It's very disappointing, but look, not a surprise. And look, one of the last things I'll touch on, and this was actually sent to me by one of our viewers, and look, there's hundreds of you, in fact thousands of views by the end of the week. It's quite remarkable, very humbling, I have to say. Was asking about a petition that's going around at the moment by a far left group demanding that David Seymour in this case be called into line, that he's breaching a code of conduct. And I had to dig this up. It has to do with social media posts like this. I haven't actually seen them before. I had to do a little bit of quick research, but there's a bill going through Parliament called the Regulatory Standards Bill, and there's a huge debate of whether it really is a major change or not. And I'm not going to get into it. But the usual array of academics, including Anne Salmond, have come out and vociferously attack it, which again they're very welcome to do. The likes of Anne Salmond, Geoffrey Palmer, Jane Kelsey and others are very well known to us in politics. And by and large, they oppose all and everything that any centre-right party does. I think David Seymour and the ACT Party must have had enough of it and started putting up these social media posts, clearly trying to reference the Trump derangement syndrome and saying the victim of the day is, in this case, Dame Anne Salmond. So that was it, really. But that's created a bit of a brouhaha or a furore. That somehow this is breaking the codes of conduct of the Cabinet Manual, that this is supposedly an attack on free speech, that this poster and others could incite violence, that it's misinformation, it's disinformation, it's violence, as I say, it's an attack on academic freedom and so forth. And hence there's this petition calling on the Prime Minister to step in and stop David Seymour doing what he's doing, such as posting those memes. Long and short, I think it's not my style. I don't particularly like ad hominem attacks, but there's absolutely nothing legally, I'd even argue morally wrong with doing such posts. And I think this also underlines a weakness in our civil discourse, that academics like Anne Salmond and others will stand on their platforms, attack very loudly, very strongly, very vociferously those they disagree with. And again, you can think back into the COVID days with Susie Wiles and Michael Baker and others, all very the same. They'd yell, they'd scream, figuratively speaking, their point of view. But when there's pushback, be it factual, satirical, they can't cope with it. They are just meant to be left in their ivory tower. Because at the end of the day, I don't see this as particularly offensive. I think, no, it's trying to push a message. It's clearly hit a nerve. It's hardly something which is going to incite violence. And look, if you're going to be in the academic world, be prepared for pushback. Your ideas, speaking to the likes of Anne Salmond, are not sacrosanct. In fact, I've read a lot of her work, including around the treaty, and I think she's widely off the mark. And we can have a debate about that. Now, I'd prefer to do it in a calm, rational way. As I say, I don't particularly like the way the ACT Party has done it. But this is not a code of conduct issue. And that's probably my final point to people. Be very, very wary of calls for any codes of conduct anywhere, certainly in Parliament and in your own workplaces. And it's not because you want people to be doing terrible things, but what happens to codes of conduct is they become weaponized by the progressive left. Just as with those ads, they're saying that this could incite actual physical, real violence, they will do the same in any other context where you're just merely expressing a different opinion. They will conflate your arguments, your pushing back, as actual physical violence, or akin to. They weaponize codes of conduct. So where you and I would sit down and have a debate and say a disagreement would be fine. The progressive left says, no, you're disagreeing with me, you're challenging me, is an act of violence. I feel threatened, I feel unsafe. The next minute, you, I, whoever's been hauled in front of some pseudo-judicial body of people to try and explain why we have an opinion, which is not woke. So anyway, there's a somewhat long and short explanation of that one. And again, I won't say who it was, just in case I'm not meant to. But there's a great example of viewers and listeners who email me, or of course through the chats, let me know what they want to talk about. And so look, it's been great to have you on Solid Ground. A reminder, there's always lots of content. Another Family Matters podcast will be dropping this week, but this was last week's one and it's the most recent with Judith Cairns around their amazing relationship and sexuality program that they run in Northern Ireland. Just an amazing program. It's in most of the schools. The satisfaction levels are through the roof. You can read, I haven't done a new Substack yet, stress the word yet, this week. My last one was around being cancelled from a university, giving a talk at late notice, so the deplatforming in New Zealand continues. Bob, as I keep using the word prolific, he's just written another blog there around ADHD. Of course, Bob and I are on every morning. You've got Bob back tomorrow on Daybreak from 7:30. And as you know, on Thursdays we do political playback. There's just no shortage. And last message, of course, is where we started, is the forum on the family. We're close now, just over a month. Please register. We sold out in recent years. I have no doubt we're going to sell out again. It's going to be amazing. I'm actually particularly dealing with Amanda Ackman at the moment, setting up not only her time in the forum, but other visits around Auckland in particular, just to talk to various groups. So look, there's so much happening, guys. There is absolutely no shortage. In fact, there was one more thing I was meant to show you because I just designed it recently. And would you believe it? I don't have it on my screen. Anyway, I will find it for Thursday morning. But long and short, you can now watch, read, and listen here on Family First. We have an array. Well, obviously you're watching this at the moment. But we're also doing a lot more articles on the website now, and we're also on the likes of Spotify. So look, you can listen to Family First and my and Bob's dulcet tones, as well as our other special guests all the time. I have to away. In the meantime, you have a wonderful day. Know that, we'll be back here on Thursday, and I look forward to chatting to you then, and thank you for all your comments.